Hello everyone, welcome to Rosa Technocrat YouTube channel. Our today's topic is understanding and analyzing the diag stop command. So, diag stop command is basically used in every kind of troubleshooting, mostly all of the troubleshooting we perform on a FortiGate. So, diag stop command helps us in understanding the process utilization resources and any perspective from a process any process perspective. So let's start with diag stop command. So diag stop command is used first of all from the CLI, and the same utilization can also be visible from the Fortigate GUI dashboard. But the Fortigate GUI dashboard just shows us the utilization in terms of percentage and as a overall system. But GUI does not gives us information from an individual process perspective or from any individual configuration perspective. So the GUI dashboard shows us a overall utilization of the CPU and the memory. But diagnose stop command can be used from the CLI to list specific process details and to understand the CPU and memory utilization more into the details. Let's see. Okay, diag stop. So this is almost, as I already told, this is almost used in every troubleshooting. This informs us about memory utilization. This informs us about CPU utilization. It's not information, I'm sorry. This informs us all process states, and it's very important to understand and interpret the output of the diag stop command. I will be showing you these commands by running onto my live devices as well, or lab devices. But before running on the lab device, let's understand the diagnosis stop command. This is the output of diaxis command. Let me make it bigger so that it's visible more clearly. Okay, so whenever I run a diaxis stop command, this is the output shown on the CLI. So the first line, as you can see, first line tells us about the runtime. What is runtime? So runtime is basically the number of days the firewall is up and running. So number of days the firewall is up and running. Let me go to my firewall CLI. Okay, so I will explain all this by running live onto our device. So let me run taxi stop. Okay, so now you can see, as you can see on my PPT as well. Let me make it little smaller so that we can see both of them together. Okay, so let us go on to the CLI and the explanation. So as you can see, the first command tells us about how many days or hours or minutes the firewall is up and running. Runtime. So the first command is runtime. So similarly on the PPT you can see runtime. This tells us about the uptime of the device. Then coming to the second line. Second line tells us about various information on CPU and memory. So here the U means the user space. So the initial these parameters are for the CPU and these parameters are for the memory. So 0U means 0% CPU on the user space. 0S means 0% CPU on the system space, and 100I means idle. So 100I means that 100% of the CPU is idle now. So as you know that I am currently running these commands on a lab device, which lab device means my own lab, my training lab. So this device does not have any traffic flowing through the firewall currently. That's why it's showing 100i means 100% of the CPU is idle. But in your case, that might not be the case. That depends on the utilization of each device. So I means idle, U means the user space, and S means the system space. So user space utilization by the user space utilization of CPU, system space utilization of CPU, and the idle state or idle percentage of the CPU. So same I have explained here. I is used for idle CPU, U is for user space CPU, and S is for system space CPU. Similarly, if you go on the other side, 2000 T means that's the total memory. T is for total memory. So that means I have got a 2 GB of memory onto my device, the total memory. 670 F is for free memory. F is used for free memory. So these last two parameters are for memory and these are for the CPU. So 670 F means that 670 MB of memory is free in my system out of the 2 GB. So same I have explained on the PPT, like 670 F is represents the free memory, T represents the total memory. Coming on to the next line's output. So the first column of the output tells you about the process name. That means which process or task. If you talk from a Windows perspective, then you can say task, otherwise process name. As a Linux, it's a process. So the first column tells us about the process name, that which process is running. Let's say HSync, IPS, and so many. The second column, like 3944 or 23286, the second column of this output tells us the process ID, means a unique number assigned to each process running on the FortiGate. This PID can change if the firewall is rebooted or if the process is restarted or killed. So these process IDs are assigned when initially the process is started. So if I kill this process or if I stop this process, next time if I run the again, the process ID may change, but generally it's not changed very frequently and it's constant most of the time. So the second column tells us about the ID that is assigned to the process. Okay, so as I told here, the second column tells you about the PID, or you can say process ID or the PID, and the first column was the process name. Okay, and now let's go to the third column. So third column is the state of the process or process state. We can say this is the process state. There are various states of a process. So the process means, sorry, S equal to sleeping. So one of the state of the process is sleeping, or R equal to running. So that means the process is running, or D equal to zombie. So zombie is a process which is like in a stuck state or in a hang state. So that process might be a D. So there are different states in which a process can run. So let's go back to the output of the diag system. Okay. So as I told that the third column explains us about the state of the process. So S, R, Z, there are different states of a process, and even there are multiple articles which can inform you about the states. So like R you can use running, S you can use sleep, Z is zombie, D is disk sleep. Disk sleep is basically when a process is stopped or is waiting for the disk IO to be assigned. So if the process is in D, that means the disk is busy in reading or writing some other process. So it's this particular process is waiting for the disk IO to be allocated. So there are multiple articles available deeply to check on this thing. Okay, so let's go back to our output. Okay, then the third, or I'm sorry, the fourth column tells us about the CPU utilization by the process. So this fourth column, as you can see in the PPT, tells us about the CPU utilization by the process. So as you can see on my outputs, like 0.5% is used by the HA process, HA talk, and so on. But in my case, you can see all the process are showing like zero point 0.0 because I don't have any traffic running on to this firewall. Now, coming to the last column, which tells us about the memory utilization of the process. So, this is the memory utilization by the process. Because a process stores many files or references and so many things to run onto the device, and every process is going to use some memory on the device. So, the fourth column tells us about the memory utilization. So, just to summarize, first column is the process name. Second column is the process ID, third is the process state, fourth is the CPU utilization by the process, and fifth is the memory utilization by the process. So as you can see, if you don't stop this command, it keeps on running automatically. So if you want to stop or exit out of this command, you need to press a Q. So as soon as you press Q, you will be out of the command output. So if you again go diag say stop, the command will go into a loop until you exit, and you can press a Q. As you can see from the output, like the whenever we run the command, it shows us all most of the process, but by default this shows us only these number of process, which is like 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 15 16 17 18 19 20. So by default, whenever you are running a command, it shows us 20 process. But there are several other processes which are not shown by default by using the diag stop command. So in that case, if you want to see other process, we can use the command, let's say. So what does this command means? I'm sorry, this is very fast. What does this command means? So after the top you can define a value is basically in seconds, like after how many seconds you want to again run this command or a loop. So let's say I'm saying after every 10 second, then you can tell the number of process, means let's say I want top 50 process. So first is the delay in the seconds and then the number of process you want to see. So if I press 50, so it's going to show me the top 50 process. You can see now the list has increased from initial or the default process of 20 to 50. So in the diag stop command itself, we can specify the delay. Diag stop delay of 10 seconds, or I will say 50 seconds or 30 seconds, and top 50 process. So you will see a list of the top 20 processes. No, I'm sorry, top 50 process. So now you see most of the processes it's showing because I mentioned 50. Similarly, you can exit the loop by pressing a Q, and if you want to increase more process, let's say 99 process. So now it's showing me all the processes that are running on the firewall, and as you can see, most of the processes are either into sleeping state or running state. Yeah, and this arrow means that this process has got a higher priority. So whenever any process has this less than symbol, that means this process has been assigned a higher priority. Like you can see OSPFD, which is a daemon for OSPF, running OSPF, got a higher priority. BGPD is a process for BGP daemon which got a higher priority. NTPD process for managing the network time or the time sync is also given a high priority because that needs to be synced properly for all time analysis. So Now exit the loop. So we have seen diaxis stop, and then you can specify the delay in the seconds. So delay is 10 seconds, and then you can specify the top number of processes. Let's say top 10, top 20, top 50, blah blah blah, any number. So this you can specify here. So this is the purpose of diaxis stop. So diaxis stop is generally used to figure out which process is consuming high memory, which process is consuming high CPU, or which process is into a hang state, or whether that particular process is running or not. Let's say if I am saying that my logs are not being forwarded to a syslog server, so which process is responsible for processing the logs, which process is responsible for processing of logs, or which process is responsible for forwarding the logs to a syslog server. So what I will do diaxis stop grep, let's say grep make log d, because I know this process is responsible for handling the logs. So as you can see, make log d is running. So similarly, we can identify whether a process is running or not. As you can see, so if you know like your issue, let's say https daemon, so that means this process is responsible for a management access or the https access of the device. So similarly, this command can be used for checking like whether a particular process is running or not, whether it's hanged, whether it's high utilizing, all those things. So generally the diaxis stop is used in any kind of or most of the hardware or issues with the Fortigate. Let's go back. Okay, there are some sub commands to the diaxis stop. What are these sub commands? Sub commands is basically filtering out the outputs from the main command, or you can say diaxis stop was giving a summary for everything in particular or in detail for all the process. But now if you let's go to the device. Sorry, that screen is big. Okay. Okay, so if I run the command diaxis stop, I need to understand or analyze it manually. Like this process is using this much memory, and this process is using 2.5 memory. But now I just want a list. I just want to list the top 5 processes that are using, or top 5 process, top 5 memory consuming processes. In that case, I can use diag, say stop, and we can say top-mem. So now you can see the top five memory consuming processes are MIG-LOGD, Forticron, CMDB server, new CLI, and MIG-LOGD. The why it's showing MIG-LOGD two times? So there are many instances where you can see multiple copies of a single process running. So basically, to process up fast or to handle many tasks, many processes can run simultaneously multiple copies. So similarly, MIG-LOGD is running 218, the process I 218 and 157. So these are consuming high memory. So not consuming high memory, but whatever the process running on the firewall, out of them, these five are the top five memory consuming process. So diaxis top. So I was talking about the sub commands of diaxis top. So we have got top all, top fd, top mem, and top sockmem. Apart from this, there was one very useful command earlier, which was diaxis top summary. But this command has been removed from 6.4 onwards. But if you have a software version which is older than 6.40, then you will see diaxis top summary as well. Let's go to the sub commands diaxis top. So as I explained, like diaxis top gives all details, whereas sub commands are used to list specific data. Diaxis top memory gives details about the top 5 high memory consuming process. So as I have shown on the device, you can see diag is top-mem, and you can see the top 5 memory consuming processes. Now, the next command is diag stop. So this tells us about the top 5 processes that are consuming or that are utilizing the file descriptors. So if you say diag stop FD, FD stands for file descriptor. So these are the 5 processes which are mostly using the file descriptors. File descriptors are where the files are being modified and entries are being created. So this is generally whenever you are forwarding the logs, or in case of IPS helper. So these uses the FD. So file descriptor also, sometimes if you have too many file descriptors, that means there is a possible memory leakage could also be there. That might that FD helps us in diagnostic memory leak usage as well. Then let's go to the next. Diaxis top socket mem. So this informs us the top processes using the socket memory. So basically all these sub commands are taking or explaining something, filtering out some data from the diaxis top and giving you into a smaller picture from the diaxis top. If you say diaxis top socket map, then it gives information about the process which is using a socket mem. So socket mem is basically socket memory which is used whenever there are real-time sessions or connections. As you know, in TCP we say like we have to open a socket or we have to close the socket, or you can see errors like socket closed because of timeout or socket closed. So socket memory is basically used during the connections for each connection. So if you see high number of socket memory, that could be because of high number of connections on the firewall as well. As you can see right now, I don't have any process which is consuming the socket memory because I don't have any real traffic on my device. So you can see there is no session, though there is no socket memory. So these were all the commands related to diag socket memory. Let me paste this in one of the snippers for the PPT as well. So just to conclude, or I can say to give an example in my PPT. Okay, so this is like socket memory. So this is just from my lab firewall, so you don't see a usage of the socket memory. Hope Q&A. Of course, you cannot put it here. So if any question and answers, questions, not answers, of course, and doubts you have, you can post it into the comments section of the video, and I will be happy to assist with your answers, or I will try to get the answers for everyone. Hope you liked my video, and if you like it, please do like and subscribe the video. Thank you so much everyone. Thank you.